Welcome to Tracking the Week. On Monday, President Tinubu sworn in 2 commissioners of INEC and 2 members of board of the Code of Conduct Bureau. The 4 officers took their oath of office at the council chambers of the Aso Rock Villa on Monday, just before the commencement of the Federal Executive Council meeting. The new INEC commissioners are Malam Tukur Abdulrazak Yusuf, representing Northwest, Professor Sunday Onwamba Maja, representing Southeast. Speaking to State House correspondent after the short ceremony, the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, hinted that the swearing-in of the 2 INEC commissioners has become necessary following the screening and consequent confirmation by the National Assembly. Speaking further on the proposed electoral bill on the floor of the National Assembly, the INEC board revealed that following the 2023 elections, over 140 recommendations were submitted to the Commission to the Federal Parliament, while several engaging platforms have been created towards creating a holistic electoral act before 2027 elections. Also on Monday, the federal government began moves to initiate sweeping reforms to revitalize the nation's electricity distribution sector, starting with the pilot overhaul of 2 underperforming distribution companies. The move follows a comprehensive assessment of systemic challenges plaguing the DISCOs, including government gaps, after a meeting with the Japanese International Cooperation Agency, which presented a roadmap titled Revamping of the Distribution Sector in Nigeria. It said the government could no longer afford the turns and watch the inadequacies of DISCOs whose performance falls short of expectations, adding that the pilot is not optional, as regulatory authority will be used to restructure underperforming DISCOs and compel compliance if necessary. On Tuesday, the House of Representatives rejected the bill seeking to provide for a rotational presidency among the country's 6 geopolitical zones. The proposal was one of 7 constitutional amendments bills slated for second reading. Debate on the rotational presidency bill was led by the Deputy Minority Leader, Honorable Aliyu Medaki, who set the tone for the criticism that ultimately led to his rejection. Medaki and several other lawmakers argue that enforcing rotational presidency could undermine merit and competence in leadership selection. However, a few members spoke in support of the bill, insisting it would help address long-standing marginalization of certain parts of the country. Also on Tuesday, in the latest wave of defections, 3 senators from Kebbi State have dumped the People's Democratic Party to the ruling APC. National Chairman of the APC, Abdullahi Ganduje, alongside Kebbi State Governor Nasir Idris and some leaders of the party, attended Senate plenaries to witness the defection of 3 senators. It was reported that the Senate relied on Order 42 of its standing rules, resolved to allow visitors into the chambers to witness the defection, which saw Senator Adamu Alero, Yahya Abdullahi and Garba Musa join the APC from the PDP. In their separate letters, the lawmakers explained that the lingering internal crisis rocking the PDP, the abysmal performance during the last general elections, and the disconnection from the original aspiration are some of the reasons for leaving the party. They added that the APC provides a more vital platform to deliver the dividends of democracy to the citizens. On Wednesday, JAMB acknowledged that technical glitches affected candidates' performance during the 2025 UTME. The board announced that 379,997 candidates in Lagos, the Nigeria Southeast region, will have to retake the exams following the discovery of errors in the result processing. The Registrar of JAMB, Professor Ishaq Oloyede, tearfully apologized during a press briefing held in Abuja, taking full responsibility for what he described as a regrettable technical oversight. Oloyede explained that the problem originated from a service provider responsible for Lagos and Southeast zones, who failed to properly update delivery service after a system patch. This error, which went unnoticed before results were released, affects 65 centers in Lagos, 206,610 candidates, and 92 centers in Southeast, affecting 173,387 candidates. Still on Wednesday, the Federal High Court of Abuja admitted the medical report and death certificate of former presidential aide Ahmed Gulak as evidence in the ongoing trial of Nnamdi Kanu, the detained leader of Prescribed Indigenous People Biafra IPOB, who is facing terrorism-related charges. Justice James Omotosho, who presided over the proceedings, allowed the documents tendered by the prosecution through a witness identified simply as BBB. Following no objections from the defense team led by Kanu Agabi, the prosecution led by Adegboyega Umolu San presented the documents, which includes a police report from Owerri, Imo State, linking Gulak's death to gunmen suspected to be members of IPOB. During cross-examinations, Agabi challenged the credibility and completeness of the video statement obtained from Kanu during DSS custody, stating that all of the defendants and his team were visible in the footage. Agabi raised concerns over Kanu's prolonged detention and alleged solitary confinement. The witness, however, maintained that he was merely an investigator and not responsible for Kanu's custody or welfare, saying solitary confinement is not a practice of the DSS. On Thursday, the Federal Ministry of Education opposed the proposed bill to establish a Federal College of Entrepreneurship and Skills Acquisition in Hawelu, Borno State, citing funding constraints and the government's policy to equitable distribution of federal institutions. Speaking at a public hearing by the House of Representatives Committee on Federal Polytechnic and Higher Technical Education in Abuja, the Director of Polytechnic Education, Dr. A.J. Usman, reaffirmed that no state would host more than one federal polytechnic, noting that only Sokoto and the FCT currently lack one. He urged lawmakers to prioritize resources for existing institutions. While the ministry accepted that proposed amendment to the Federal Polytechnic Act, it rejected plans to include MDTE and MEN representatives on Polytechnic Government Council, stating their roles don't align with institutional governance. Still on Thursday, the Kaduna State University chapter of ASU suspended the strike it embarked since last month. This was disclosed by the Vice Chancellor, Professor Abdullahi Musa, while briefing journalists in Kaduna. Professor Abdullahi said the decision to suspend industrial action was due to funds released by the state government, which has been disbursed to the university community in compliance with the demands. Some students who spoke to Galaxy TV crew within the school campus expressed joy over the return of school activities. On Friday, President Bola Tinubu met with head of the nation's armed forces for security agencies with a fresh directive to them to intensify efforts and collaborate with all neighboring countries to tame the tide of all forms of insecurity in the country. Addressing State House correspondents after the security meeting, which lasted for more than 3 hours at the President's office, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, hinted that the recent spike in spate of insecurity is as a result of global push by terrorists and jihadists all over the Sahel area, and the pressure is affecting Nigeria because of the nature of our borders. The city has reviewed that while more equipment are being gotten across board, the President also gave security chiefs further approval for air asset and other aspects of security. Lastly, on Friday, the Court of Appeal in Abuja reserved judgment in multiple appeals challenging the tribunal verdict on the outcome of September 2024 Edo State governorship election. The appeals, including those filed by PDP, the Action Alliance, Accord Party, and the respective candidate in the governorship election. A cross-section was also filed by APC and its candidate Monday Okpebolo. Counsel to the PDP argued that the election tribunal fell short by not properly considering alleged non-compliance with the Electoral Act, specifically pointing to missing serial numbers from the Form EC25B. However, counsel to Okpebolo objected to the position of the PDP, saying that the appellant failed to provide substantial evidence on irregularities and that the form in contention wasn't designed to capture serial numbers. And that's it on Track in the Week.